Well, thank you, everyone. So before we dive in, I just want to take a minute to thank all the veterans here in this room today, because I'm sure there are some, including our very own Erin Knowles. And you know, without you, this great experiment of our country, it would cease to exist. And so thank you, we appreciate you, we are forever grateful. And thank you everyone for joining this important topic. Here to speak directly to opportunities, successes, and updates surrounding veteran hiring are Elizabeth O'Brien and Jessica Reynolds. Elizabeth is the Vice President of Programs and Events at Hiring Our Heroes, and that's a program of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation. The role enables her to bring together public and private partners to create innovative workforce solutions for the military community by connecting leading employers with veterans. As a military spouse herself, she brings an indispensable personal experience and passion to her work. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that she was recently recognized as a nominee for the prestigious Military Spouse of the Year Award, a national honor presented by Military Spouse Magazine and Armed Forces Insurance. Jessica Reynolds is a certified military and veteran recruiter and currently serves as Director of Talent Management at Echelon Services. Also a military spouse, she has built a successful career helping staff the national security workforce. Her professional expertise is vast, and she has been directly involved in hiring the veteran community, having formerly worked as a military recruitment program manager, and through successfully setting up and scaling 3 Skillbridge programs. Today, Elizabeth and Jess will share their invaluable expertise and explore strategies to support veterans transitioning to civilian careers and the inherent value that they bring to the workforce. So Elizabeth, let's start with you. Would you have any current veteran statistics from Hiring Our Heroes on who is entering the workforce or looking for work?
Yep. So I think it's important to note and start with the grounding stats that we work off of. You know, we pay attention to the Bureau of Labor Statistics at DOL releases every month. So we know coming out of August, veteran unemployment rate was 3.4%, and that was up from the previous month. However, compared to our civilian counterparts, they were at 4.1%. And so that is fantastic, right? I think anybody that's in this room that has been around for a long time remembers the absolute epidemic that we had in 2011-12 when our veteran unemployment was at astronomical rates compared to our civilian counterparts, and then the cascading effects that come from that to our family members, when people can't find employment. And certainly that we watched as the country rallied and put programs into place. And certainly one of the most, I think, impactful programs that DoD has ever launched is Skillbridge. And so we know under our umbrella at Hiring Our Heroes, we are the largest super intermediary that exists in partnership with the Department of Defense for Skillbridge. And so we currently put through about 2,500 service members a year. To date, we've probably pushing close to 14,000 that have gone through during the existence of this authority. And we have great learning lessons from it. But when you just look at the overarching statistics and you think, oh, unemployment is low, that's not the actual truth, right? There are various demographics, whether they're junior enlisted, whether they're veterans on the outside that have to come back and seek employment. Are you underemployed? So even if you go through Skillbridge or you find a job as you transition out, are you then in underemployment? But we know through the lens of Skillbridge, we have 2 distinct demographics that go through: the junior enlisted and then those that really stay in through retirement. And they have very different needs and unique needs. And so how we partner with great companies to find those pathways and be responsive becomes unbelievably important, because every company that's in this room or outside of this room that wants to host a Skillbridge service member plays a direct impact on that individual, or direct success on that individual finding employment. And so the willingness to scale and be responsive to the demographic is unbelievably important.
No, that's absolutely crucial. And it's interesting the difference between, like you said, those who retire from the military versus those who, do their first contract and second. I recently had an experience in my small town in upstate New York where I spoke to someone who will be retiring from the Navy who knew exactly what ClearanceJobs was and was ready to make his profile in 13 years when he retires, and the other is getting out in a year and a half and he has no idea what he wants to do afterwards. So we had a great conversation about these are the programs available to you, and he didn't know. So it was, these types of conversations are absolutely vital to this community. Especially, Aaron spoke to this is a population that has a security clearance. Let's get them into the workforce to use that security clearance. And so again, I know I already said it, but thank you for being on this panel because it's a crucial topic. So Jessica, would you have insights on how organizations can better become a veteran and military spouse friendly employer?
So when you're looking at your veteran friendliness, it's really about veteran readiness. Are you ready to bring in that veteran and that military spouse population? Because as military spouses, and I know several of you out here are also military spouses, we have different challenges in the workforce than our military partner. My husband won't have the same challenges that I had because his career trajectory is different, but being able to set up a culture that is grounded in teamwork, training, and models that camaraderie of the military is really going to help bring in some of your veteran population, and understanding the challenges as a military family that you're going to face. We may need flexible work schedules. My husband has to pack up and go wherever on 2 days notice, and now I've got to get my kids from school. So being able to be flexible and have a culture that is really grounded in, even, they said it this morning, the whole person initiative. Your policies need to have exemptions. Your thought processes need to not be written in pen. As a military spouse, nothing is written in pen. Everything is written in pencil, because changes happen every day, and we have to be ready to support our people through those changes.
Well, that's a great point. And again, thank you for sharing your personal experience, because that is who we all are. We all have lives outside of our jobs, and as military spouses, and it's crucial that their employer is understanding that things are going to come up and I'm going to have to pivot. So great insight. Now, Elizabeth, what do veterans look for in a job? So how can organizations brand themselves to reach these veterans who are looking for these specific things?
Yeah, I think it's really important, if you are leaning in to hire veterans, you have to build a brand of trust. It's not okay to just all of the sudden show up and think that veterans are going to flock to you just because you have a job. One of the things we've intentionally done at Hiring Our Heroes is build out a massive, massive social media platform so that we can tell the stories effectively of partners that have veteran-ready cultures, that have great resource groups, that have flexible and adaptive environments. And it's never, hey, look at this company, go work for them. It's the story of success. It's, hey, Jessica is a transitioning service member or a veteran and went through our Skillbridge program and found a home with this company. And over the course of the year, she has had the opportunity to advance. So it's really about creating this opportunity to build your brand well in advance. It's also about showing up to where veterans are. We host hiring events on installations. Next year we'll be on 75 installations around the globe. And part of that was when we were launched in 2011, we were trying to solve for veteran unemployment. And in late 13, early 14, we decided, hey, we have to get far left of this, and let's bring the events, let's bring the companies onto the installation so that even if you're not getting out for 18 months, you might decide to stop by. And then you see one of those veteran-ready companies, you have a conversation, you start to build the brand and the trust. So when that service member is ready, you're already top of mind for them. So it's about showing up well in advance. It's about showing up and meeting people in the communities truly that they're in and that they're a part of.
That aspect of meeting them where they're at is so crucial. And to be at 75 installations, I mean, you're just hitting the pavement with those, and that's
for sure.
No, and that's how you have to do it. So thank you for that. Now, Jessica, how have you focused your recruiting to make the organizations that you've supported an attractive option for the military community? especially as a small business, because obviously it's can be apples and oranges sometimes. It's hard to compare the big government contractor to the small business. So can you touch a little bit on that?
Absolutely. So I am now in 8A, and I can guarantee you only the people in here that personally know me have even ever heard of Echelon Services besides our one JV partner. Shout out to Accelerate. But other than that, we're not a well-known brand. But I set up my most successful Skillbridge program at a little company called L3Harris. And so it's a household name for so many in the military, so they come to it. And I didn't have to do a lot of work for that because they're like, oh my God, it's L3Harris. I work on your stuff every day. But now I work for a native Hawaiian 8A that nobody's heard of. So how do I bring people to my door? And that is through painting the picture. We're recruiters, we're salespeople. At the end of the day, we sell a picture of what could be. And that's exactly how you do it. We boots on ground, we sell our culture, we sell our mission, what we do, how we do it, and the benefits that we have in place to support our veterans and our military families. And that gives them the ability to see themselves in that picture so that they can see this company is ready for me, this company will support me through my reserve duty, this company understands that I have appointments and children. We have a generous PTO, things like that. And we also have veterans for mentorship that bring the camaraderie into the veterans, because that is something I've heard personally from a lot of veterans that they miss when they get out, is that camaraderie that they had in the service. And now we're in an individualistic job where it's me, not us.
I think also, you mentioned individual contributor jobs, and also how the workforce has evolved over the last 5 years, where so many folks are in geographically dispersed workforces. So how do you create a culture under that umbrella as you're selling and recruiting people into there, and all of the pieces that you then build on top of that to bring geographically dispersed workforces together when they're not working side by side. So it's just been a really fast-moving, I feel like the last 5 to 7 years, just workforce changes at a rate of speed that we haven't seen in a long time.
Well, thank you again for that insight, because I know we have other small businesses here, and I'm sure they're asking these questions as well. Now, Jessica, again, Elizabeth.
I'll answer anything. I don't.
Jessica, you can also try to answer this too, but since you did have experience in building Skillbridge programs, so we have quite a few employers in this room today. So, Elizabeth, what are the eligibility requirements for becoming a Skillbridge employer? And could you walk us through the general steps that Skillbridge applicants might experience?
Yeah, so we are at an interesting time right now for Skillbridge. How many people in here host Skillbridge folks, right? So you should be tracking that there are significant changes coming out of the Military Civilian Transition Office where Skillbridge is housed. So since our existence, we have had the luxury of anybody that's under our umbrella, we vet them, we make sure that they are actually hiring, et cetera. And all intermediaries have been trusted to do that. So as long as they were under our umbrella, they didn't have to get an MOU with MCTO's office. So this summer, MCTO's office shut down for 90 days. They did a deep dive. There are a lot of intermediaries, believe it or not, and a lot of companies out there that host Skillbridge folks and then don't have jobs for them, right? And they're not always clear and upfront about it. So we only get one bite at going through Skillbridge and transitioning effectively. And so end of summer, they came out with more strict guidelines, right? You have to have intent to offer. You have to, so all companies are going to have to sign MOUs. And they are going to have a fall onboarding process for that and a spring one. So let me work backwards from that. Our MOU is good through August. So any employers that are under us, you have basically a year to get that through. But if you haven't started that process, I highly encourage you to begin the MOU process, because you're going to have to go back and forth with legal teams. If you're fortunate in a small business, maybe it moves a little more quickly, but there will be a lot of back and forth. And the requirements under it will, you're going to have a 85% offer rate and a 75% hire rate, right? Like they are truly trying to run bad actors out. So they have extended, originally that deadline was going to be this fall. They've extended that through June of 2025. So if you're not under Hiring Our Heroes umbrella, you have until end of June 2025. If you're under our umbrella, you have until August, but we are encouraging anybody right now who's even contemplating or who's transitioning service members under Skillbridge Authority, you have to begin that MOU process. We are having a lot of conversations with MCTO. You know, we have a lot of hopes that they will allow us to vet because, here's an example. We had, this last cohort, we had 837 companies participate under our umbrella. If now all of those 837, we're one intermediary, 837 companies show up at MCTO's office to get an MOU processed, and they have 7 people on that team, the backlog that's going to exist is going to break the system. So we're having a lot of discussions. Where it ends up, I don't know, but my advice to you is certainly to begin the process of an MOU. And my other advice is if you are not currently under HOH, come quickly under us because it at least extends your runway till next August as we sort through. We also we gave some feedback too because they had put minimum salary requirements in the first release of $52,000. They tried to eliminate commission-based jobs. But we don't believe there's a world where we should dictate what a minimum salary looks like coming out of Department of Defense because I might be very happy as a retiree to go home to a town where I can live off of my retirement and make $40,000. What if I want to go into a civil servant job and be a firefighter? I might only be making 40, so that would immediately eliminate that individual from competing in Skillbridge. So we gave feedback around that, and when they updated the MOU, they did remove those minimum salary requirements. And I think we also need to continue to educate our transitioning service members around what right looks like so they are not in this gap exploited by not good actors. So those are the big pieces.
Thank you. So it's June 2025.
End of June, yep. And you can go to MCTO's website, you can go to MCTO's Facebook, tons of updates on there.
And so then Jessica, what was your experience in starting up a Skillbridge program?
So coming from a small business, I don't have that many hurdles to jump through because we don't have all of the departmental red tape to go through. I enter straight to the COO and the CEO. So I go straight to them, get things signed. But to start out, pick a job. Because with the new regulations, it is no longer a blanket MOU. You are having to go through program by program. So you have to pick a job. Pick something that you hire for consistently because it will make your life easier. Get your job description written appropriately for transitioning service members and submit your paperwork. It is a fairly painless process once you have gotten all of your stuff together. Understand what job, who your hiring team is, who your points of contact are going to be because they're going to need to be listed clearly, and your training plan because above and beyond, while we can look for service members who have a background similar to what we are looking to hire, this is a training program. At the end of the day, this job is to train service members into civilian employment. So having a well-written, thorough training plan ready is going to be a big step, and that's going to take a lot of collaboration with your hiring teams if you have L&D, things of that nature, to outline those steps.
Great. So, we heard from the setting up the Skillbridge program side, and we've discussed all of the elements here, but what are the benefits? Why should employers be setting up Skillbridge programs? So, Elizabeth, I will direct.
Yep. There's definitely a host of benefits. First and foremost, we're seeing the sweet spot where folks get approved for transition. Although they're eligible for 180 days, we're really only seeing where branches are approving for 90 days, right? And we understand around recruiting and retention crisis, and so it's hard to release people 180 days in advance. So if you're getting them for 90 days, you are saving 3 months' salary. You are really, and they are finding out, is this actually a good fit? Right? And so before you've even hired them, you have the luxury of doing the training, the onboarding, figuring out, are they actually the right fit, decreasing risk around your company. We also know from our data for the fellows under the HOH umbrella that go through, it increases their retention with companies. So we have for many years been know that 50% of veterans are leaving their first job in the first year. For us, it's increasing length of time as well. And then I will tell you, 83% of our fellows have a clearance, right? So we are delivering everything from TSSCI to polys to top secret clearances. And so what it would cost to hire somebody to go find those people and place them, and then that third party company is taking a percentage of their salary, you have access to them, and we are doing the sourcing. So we feel like we're an extension of your team, especially when you're a small, medium-sized business and maybe you're one or two people. All of a sudden you have 40 program managers that are going to work to source talent for you on a daily basis. And I will also share with folks in the room, which I think is probably a little known fact, DoD created a sister program for military spouses. It's out of a different office, but I can also take a military spouse and place them into an internship with your company, and DoD is paying their stipend. So that's also another pool of talent. Many of our military spouses are also veterans, and some of them have clearances. So when you think about the opportunity to look at two different highly qualified talent pools, at no cost for 3 months, it's really powerful.
Absolutely. It's truly a win-win situation in this respect. So now, of course, we talk about the benefits. Obviously, there are a lot, but it is reality. So there are going to be some roadblocks. There are going to be some challenges. So Jessica, can you touch a little bit about that, just so that anyone interested can be prepared?
Absolutely. Obviously, you're going to have to sell this depending on the size of your company. And the first question someone at L3 Harris asked me was, well, how do they work for free? Well, they're not working for free. They are still paid by the military, which is a great circumvention to the unpaid internship thing that we all remember when unpaid internships were the norm. Well, that's not really a great thing to do, but they're still paid. So educating your internal stakeholders, understanding what Skillbridge is and what Skillbridge isn't. Skillbridge is a rich program for access to highly qualified and adaptable talent at no business cost. You're already gonna have to train and on-ramp your new hire, but now you get to kind of scale that back on cost and risk because you're not paying their salary, you're not paying their UI, you're not paying any of their taxes. So, I mean, if you think about it, we've all talked to staffing companies. Most of us have probably used staffing companies or work for a staffing company. This is a try before you buy scenario with a great motive behind it to employ our nation's veterans and military spouses.
So both of you, what can fellows do, or what kind of job opportunities can recruiters create for fellows in their organizations so they are set up for a pipeline of candidates once they transition?
I think you really have to work backwards, right? Because your company may have different needs than your company, and your company has different needs. But ultimately, I can speak from our lens. If you come to us and tell us what your jobs are, or we seem to get the companies and the folks that have really hard jobs to fill, right? That they're not able to fill, and say, hey, can you work backwards from this and find pipelines, right? To the point where the Navy's come to us and said, we need you to build pipelines to fill our nuke jobs and our shipbuilding jobs. Navy is the least friendly branch for Skillbridge. And all I can think about is if you would plug these folks into Skillbridge, you would retain them in this military industrial complex and not have this gap that exists. So I can't say, build pipelines for X, Y, and Z. It's really incumbent upon the companies to decide where they need help and then to leverage us or to build your own brand and work backwards from there. But we definitely will be able to find opportunities.
And from a small business lens, nobody knows your business line better than you. You know what you recruit for, and with the advocacy, you can even start with one. There always has to be a first. Who wants to be your guinea pig? Find your guinea pig and work backwards. What is that one person's MOS code? What's their skill set? What are their goals? And how do you make the two match? Where there's always a way. If you have a will, there's a way. So find your first and then let it grow organically. You don't have to force it into one job. It doesn't have to be only low-level jobs. It doesn't have to be only program managers, because we know that's every transitioning service member's favorite job title, program manager. And help them be their advocate, be their sounding board. What do they want to do? Flesh out their goals. We're relationship builders. Start to build that relationship. Ask the fact-finding questions.
I think you hit on an important point. Start with one. We get large companies sometimes that come to us who have never done this before, and they're like, we're going to take 50 fellows. And we say, absolutely not. You're going to start with 3. You're going to pilot the program. You're going to work out all the kinks, because if you take this to market at scale and you do a bad job, you're killing your brand. So whether you're small, medium, or large size business, put those first few through. We tell companies, absolutely not. 1, 2, or 3.
The first HR VP that I ever pitched this to, she said, great, so you're going to hire 500 people a quarter. And I was like, huh? 500 people a quarter on a program that she'd never heard of.
That's amazing.
And that's where education for your stakeholders is so important, and helping them understand what this is and what this isn't. This isn't a magic easy button for your hard to hire needs. This is a program to give you rich, diverse candidates to fill the jobs you already have.
Wow, that was a staggering anecdote you shared. Thank you for sharing that. So both of you, as we close out this panel, I think we will have some time for questions, but first, the bulk of the cleared population are former service members. So anything I didn't ask you, anything at the top of your mind, anything close to your heart that you want to share about this topic, the floor is yours.
I would just say thank you to anybody in here that continues to hire transitioning service members, military spouses, veterans. Know that you are making a difference. We are living in a culture across America where dual income families are unbelievably important. And so when you put a service member to work, or if you put a military spouse to work a year in advance of transition, it then allows a service member to find the right job, because they are not stressed about income coming into their house. But we know all of the cascading impacts that it has on mental health, on wellness, of stability in families, of economic opportunity that it generates for our military kids. I have 3 Army brats, right? I have been so fortunate to work at HOH for a decade. And if we had to move 9 times, Eric had no problem with it. Just make sure I know what time zone you're in and when I can call you, right? So creating that environment. And in return, he's had a really dedicated employee for a decade. But just know that when you choose to hire and invest, it is having impact across our families. When we are looking at the state of our all-volunteer force, and where recruiting and retention is at all-time lows, and you're asking me to decide, are my 3 kids, are we preaching service at home, or are we having a bad transition and we're kind of turned off about it? So just know that what you do every day has much larger implications and significance, so thank you.
Military spouses, and I know a few of you are, we are one of the most highly educated but underemployed demographics. I know countless military spouses have master's degrees in things like anthropology, doctorates in social science, and the only jobs they've had for the last 5 years are MLMs, because we move every 2 to 4 years, like clockwork. And resetting every 2 to 4 years is hard for us, it's hard for our kids, and finding a job that I can take with me wherever I go, no matter what, has been life-changing for my family. And that's why things like the military spouse, especially when they introduced the stipend and things like that for the fellowship, it's huge. It's opportunities that were never there before for you want to talk about staggering unemployment numbers. Most of us aren't even covered because we aren't looking for work because they've given up. It is 3 times the national average from unemployment for military spouses. And most of us have used countless education. So if you're looking for a dedicated, well-organized group, please talk to HOH about their spouse fellowships.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So I think we can open the floor to questions. I think we'll start over here and then we'll go to Aaron. So we'll start over.
I just wanted to say, speaking as an HOH alumni, I just wanted to say that it's been great of an opportunity to have, in that now I'm employed by a company that I fully intend to grow with and has really respected me as a person, and it definitely has been a life-changing experience. So I definitely want to thank HOH for that.
Thank you for advocating.
Thank you for sharing. That's beautiful.
Sorry for I keep on about that.
No, we appreciate it.
So I love Hire Heroes. I love the Skillbridge program. I think that my only question really is, there's not a whole lot of veterans where this does happen to, but there's not a lot of, there are some transitioning veterans that don't have the opportunity to attend Skillbridge. Skillbridge is, let's be clear, is just for the transitioning service member
Yes.
who is not a veteran yet.
Correct.
So you're not hiring a veteran, you're transitioning a service member into a veteran status in an internship to give him the job when he's transitioned fully.
Or she.
Or she's
Yep.
they. So for the veteran that's out that did not have whatever by any means that could not participate
Sure.
in Skillbridge, what options are there for a veteran pipeline? Like what options are there for I understand it's an internship, there's not the same background and pay, there's not the same support
Right.
structure. But what can a veteran do once he's gotten out and can then maybe figure out how to attend the Skillbridge program? Because I don't think that that's offered.
No, it's not. So Skillbridge is under the authority of the Department of Defense. So once you transition out, you are no longer under the Department of Defense. All likelihood you have access, for some folks, not all folks, right, to leverage the VA. But there is not currently a funded opportunity for veterans. We're keenly aware of that, right? So remember, this authority belongs to the Department of Defense, and that's why it's so important that transitioning service members have the opportunity to participate. But the reality is they are released based on what their commanders decide, right? And we've seen the Marine Corps and the Navy map out some serious guidelines over the last 6 months about who's eligible, who is not eligible. And so it is a challenge that we're keenly aware of. We are having discussions, and if you have government relations folks on your teams, I'd encourage them to go to the Hill and have conversations. Where can the VA or Department of Labor create streams of funding? Because if you're going to have an intern, they have to be paid, right? So that we're in line with the Fair Labor Standards Act. So there has to be a stream of money that's allocated for them. What I would love to see, if you have government relations people, is that the day that you retire or separate, if you were denied the opportunity to participate, you are then eligible for 6 months under a stream of funding from the VA or Department of Labor. It's funded the same way, and you have the opportunity to go through. The likelihood of that, I think we're probably 1 to 2 years away. Now, I will tell you, those 72 locations that we go to for hiring events, we welcome everybody who is military related. So we're a nonprofit, so we don't have to operate under the guidelines of DoD, right? A military spouse for us is any partner that has had their career impacted by a service member's commitment to this country. Because if you get divorced under DoD, you lose those benefits immediately around access to employment services. So we work hard to fill those gaps. So if there is a veteran in a community that we're going to, they can come to our hiring events, they can come to our virtual events, they can come to our receptions. But what we haven't yet solved for, and this has to be, it's not just for HOH to solve, it's for DOL and for the VA to solve, but it is a very fair point that we're tracking, and we're trying very hard to create solutions, but it's a bureaucracy that has to have the power. There is nothing greater than the power of American business, right? So if American business goes in and lobbies and advocates for this, you're going to make a lot more progress than one nonprofit's going to make.
HOH is the forefront of this space, but there are countless other nonprofits and entities that are out here, predominantly through the word of social media. 50 Strong is one. You've got the Act Now Education Group on Facebook. There are so many avenues out here to connect veterans. The ones who maybe they got a bad actor Skillbridge and they didn't get a position. There are pathways, while they may not be the same onus of Skillbridge, where it is an internship, a trial. I know Northrop Grumman has a huge veteran intake pipeline. There are so many other, even my size companies that are looking for these skills, and it's getting the people in front of one another, in which we heard social media this morning or this afternoon, getting on social media, getting a presence, because if you're not out there, we can't find you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you all so much. Can we get a round of applause? Elizabeth referenced the Military Spouse Employment Partnership, or MSEP. Getting involved with these organizations, these partnerships, not only fuels your candidate pipelines, but also are great branding opportunities. They're great opportunities to partner on events. So again, thank you all for joining. Really appreciate it.